We are back on MorningLine. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about homeless veterans this morning. Our guests, Amanda Dobbs and Amanda Swam. They're both with the VA homeless program here in Middle Tennessee. They are out of Rutherford County, of course, where there is a large VA facility. And yeah, this kind of stuff, I don't know about you as you sit here listening to it. We all know how homelessness is something that we need to address. You hear the city of Nashville talking about it all the time, just in general. And then homeless veterans who especially need help. But as we're talking about now, the solution, I'm sitting here thinking there isn't one. We're talking amongst ourselves during the commercial break about just how difficult it is for anyone to find housing these days. If you have a job and income, and what's the end game here, you think? As you say, it could be catastrophic anyway if this continues the way it's going.
You're going to have more and more people on the streets. And we can't have that, and especially our veterans, but all people. We can't have them out and on the streets. It's got to change. We got to come up with more affordable housing. Mm-hmm. We have to, as a community, as a state, we have to come up with more affordable housing.
Do you get a sense, talking to your colleagues, and maybe you do keep in touch, not just in Middle Tennessee, around the state, but in other states? We all know it's super hot here, but is this an issue to this degree, or do you think Nashville and Middle Tennessee may be one of the worst areas for this because the housing market is so hot right now?
Out of control.
It's worse. I mean, I'm just wondering if you have a template you can look at where someplace else did something that worked.
No, I don't. We haven't really talked to any as to whether they're struggling as much as us. I wouldn't want to speak to.
Well, I don't think there's a market in the country outside of places like Austin, Vegas, maybe stuff like that that's hotter than what we're doing right here. So the properties are so out of control for everyone. It hits the homeless harder here than any place else.
Well, and it's just spreading because, like Woodbury and those other areas, their rent,
so you've even checked to move out. Maybe if you can't find something in Nashville, which no one can, then you say, well, let's go ahead and check Mount Juliet. Forget it. Okay, let's check Lebanon. Not so much. Let's check Watertown. Not so much. But you're going to Woodbury. You're going to some of these Winchester, Manchester, and even places that far out, if the veterans could move there, are not an option?
Some of them have some units, but a lot of them are full. It is a little bit more affordable. They may be slightly still within that range, but it's barely. Columbia, I can house typically still in that area up in Murray County, so I'm still doing fairly well there. So Williamson County's always been a problem, but that's what we're becoming. That's what Rutherford and everything is.
It's what Williamson County always has kind of. It's been more expensive there.
Yeah, and now we're becoming, the price of buying a house or just renting an apartment or all of that. It's just skyrocketing. We got a call a couple of weeks ago from a veteran who's been living, actually his daughter I think called too, and he's been living in this unit for who knows, I think like 10 years maybe, and his rent just jumped $300-400, so he can't live there anymore. I mean,
you were telling me about there are some landlords, not enough of them for sure, but did you say Mr. Peacock?
Yes.
Tell me about Mr. Peacock and why you'd love to have many more peacocks.
Well, Mr. Peacock has a unit in Smyrna, and he has several other units as well. And he keeps his rent affordable. He believes in this. This is a project more.
Is he a veteran himself, do you wonder? Or,
I don't know. Think I would know that, but I've never really talked to him about that.
His are affordable for everyone, or but he also helps, and you have veterans living in some of his properties.
So he had a couple of units come available, and he was setting them aside for our vulnerable ones that have to move out of that complex that we were talking about.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and he was going to do that. Now, we couldn't take those because our veterans are still under lease, but he was willing to. I mean, he's fabulous. He'll do that. We have another one that Mr. Booton's amazing as well. Yeah. He works really hard with our vets, but Mr. Peacock has a lot of territory, and his family, he's been offered. We were talking about this the other day when I told him about what was going on, and he got a little tearful with me. I think we had a moment together because of what's happening and everything, and he just believes, his whole family works on this program just to keep their rent affordable
So he could be making a ton more, or he could sell his properties.
It's a pretty unit with lots of space, yeah.
But because it's the right thing to do, and he's getting by, obviously, and I'm sure he's successful. But that's just it. How much?
I'm not even saying afford. He's going well below.
Well below.
He's at $550 for a 1-bedroom.
Oh, you can't find that anywhere.
And $600 for, I think, or estimation.
And he's doing that because he knows.
Like,
and does he look for income qualifications for people? I mean, $550, you could see someone who's, if it's a nice place, who has a job and is making money, is not homeless, saying, I'd want to live there. But he tries to hold these for...
I believe so. That's what he's kind of always expressed to me, and those that are really vulnerable.
Showing that they have
needing.
need. Right.
Yep, he tries to put those group of people first. So, those on a set income, maybe with some medical. One of my veterans that just moved out, he actually bought his own place, but he has terminal cancer. And he was there, and they would check on him, and they just made sure he was set up and good to go. I mean, they're absolutely amazing.
And the veterans that have to move out of some of these existing places, they have to serve till the end of their lease? They can't just split when they've been told they have to leave?
Well, we're still working on that piece.
Well, I don't get that. Maybe someone should ask the landlord why he won't let these veterans out of their house, out of them early when they've been told they have to leave. If they find someplace else they can go to, and they know you have to stay here and keep paying, that'd be fun. Let's ask that landlord and put him on camera why he won't allow a veteran that he's kicking out to move into a property that's available that they're going to lose if they have to sit and pay.
You can ask again.
Oh, no, we can ask. I'm sure he'll be pleased when I throw the camera in his face. Well, we'll just give him a chance to give me his answer. I guess he's got the lease, right? So it's his right.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of crap that goes on. Let's look at the bigger picture, right? And by the way, these aren't just veterans that... is it always singular, or are there sometimes veterans and families?
Families, absolutely. This group that we're looking for, just to make sure that the word is out clearly about the group, most of these are single. There's a couple of families, but yes, we get lots of families and children.
With children, some children of the veterans, or
yes, I have a veteran and her husband are both veterans in the program, and they have 3 teenagers.
Okay. And what in a situation like that, just in general, what is it that ended up putting them in these dire straits? Were they unable to get a job? Did they, coming back from overseas, have issues? What kind of issues do they face that land them in the homelessness situation?
There is not one kind of situation.
Okay, of course not.
But well, what I just want to really drive home is that nobody is immune to the circumstances of life.
Right.
And so some people don't have a support system to fall back on, and that's why our program is here. But we've seen anything from intense medical issues that have come up one after another. Somebody's unable to work again. They're on a very limited income, and therefore with how high rent is, they can't afford it on their own. They're paying 90% of their income toward rent, which is not sustainable whatsoever for the rest of your household needs per month, for a budget. And we have any number of, I know, like we mentioned before, having landlords sell wherever a veteran has been staying. They can't afford to either go somewhere else. There's any number. I'm trying to think of
what. I don't even remember. What were you asking? Sorry.
Well, just about what lands veterans in this situation sometimes. I mean, just many of them are working. Are they working? Many of them? I mean, but they're not making enough money to pay for what? I mean, it's not even in the realm.
If you have to have 3 times your rent to rent a place, think about how high that income percentage is. There's no way you can be, I mean, and I'd like to clarify that maybe, they do have case management needs when they come in, but we have tons of success stories. I have one that right now, she's been in my program and working with me for about 3 years. She's about to graduate with her nursing degree. So, I mean, we have a success story after. I just want to make sure that, they may need some case management assistance along the way.
But then they get back on their feet, and you have many success stories.
Tons.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we have the ones that are medically fragile that probably will keep our vouchers for now on,
Some are on disability.
Some are service connected.
Or they're older, like you said. You had someone who was terminally ill, and I mean, I guess you have veterans of all various conflicts going back to Vietnam?
Absolutely.
Okay, and so those are older individuals that are obviously in a fixed income and probably not in a position to work anyway.
Right.
Do you guys contact congressmen, senators? I know you're a VA, so you have to be careful. But I mean, I don't know what kind. I mean, but you know, most of our lawmakers. I mean, everyone. You know, what's interesting is a lot of people talk a good game, saying, "Oh, we love our veterans," which is true. We all do. How many of them really, though, are going to take the step up to really make a difference sometimes when you're seeing a situation like this? That's my question. This is real, okay? So you can talk around, thank you for your service, all that kind of stuff is great. But who's going to step up or really put their, you know, money where their mouth is when they're talking about how much they value the service of these veterans?
I hope Rutherford. I really do. I believe in them. I believe that getting the word out to them and Middle Tennessee as
Well, I think most people, if they really understand what we're hearing right now,
I think so.
would say, now, I don't know what someone who doesn't own property could do to help, but what let's talk
Advocate.
about then.
Yeah.
What's that?
Advocate.
Okay, advocate. Can you volunteer? Can you make donations? I don't know. What do people do? What can people do that see this that maybe, you know, look, if I had an apartment complex myself that I owned and could set aside half of it for, you know, very low rent for folks like the homeless, veterans, some of them, I would do it. I don't have that, but I'd like to help. What can people do? Besides advocate and get the work out. When you're advocating, who are you advocating for besides the veterans? You're advocating to get civic leaders to take notice and say, look, we've got to start setting aside some of these properties so that we have a place for our homeless to go.
Yes.
Yes.
Right?
We got to do something.
Do you ever walk around some of the cities and see some of the vacant buildings sitting there? Oh, there's a bunch in Nashville still, believe it or not. And there's some in a lot. But again, municipalities have them, and they're holding on to them until something comes along where they can sell it or build. But there are empty schools sitting around. Now, that doesn't mean you can make that renovated into a place for someone to live easily. But there are vacant buildings. Can any of those be used for anything? Do you ever see any of those, like an old armory or something like that?
Yeah, there's lots of things like that. But, you know, we don't know the circumstances of whether who's going to be liable for that, if who's going to be responsible, who's going to make sure if we're going to open that up to men and women, who's going to monitor it.
See, all those questions, you're right. I mean, it's
there's
not
a
so
lot
simple.
It really isn't. It's not that, and it is complex. I think maybe a committee to figure out what, you know, you said, what can they do? Maybe we need incentives for landlords. Maybe people can get together within the community to start thinking a little bit more outside of the box. You don't have to be within government or anything. You can just have a good idea and come together and let's start advocating. And I went back to Rutherford. I believe they'll step up because, you know, they stepped up before. The mayor at one point, you know, made free transportation because veterans were having a hard time getting around, and they ride the Rover for free.
Yeah.
I mean, they've done different programs like that, you know, and I think people care. I really do. I think the word just needs to get out, and I'm hoping that.
Well, we're going to do more on it. Listen, we'll take a break. We'll be back with our final segment with our guests right after this. Stay with us.